In this video we're going to take a look at creating a new business process, one which will ultimately associate either to a request type, a service or a catalogue item. So the first thing we're going to do is give the new process a name. So we'll call this one instant process and then we'll create that. In doing so it takes us into the process designer and it takes us into an initial first stage. Now the process we may want to create may have multiple stages, so the first thing we'll do is actually define those stages. So we'll come in here and we'll initially create 3 stages for this process. The stages are important because it will actually give some structure to the underlying process and will be able to be visualized via a graphical heads-up display on the requests that are running this process. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to give the stage a meaningful name. So here we might just call this one assignment. And then within that particular process there might be some checkpoints or actions that we want to mark, again as a visual aid to anybody that's looking at the request that's running that process, to let them know what's been achieved or what needs to happen next. So we'll just come in here and we'll put assigned to team, and we'll add a second one which will be assigned to owner. Now these checkpoints can be mandatory or optional depending on whether they are required before you can move on to a subsequent stage. So once we've named that particular stage, we'll come on here and do the same with the second, and we'll call this one resolution, and we'll give that a checkpoint of incident resolved. And then the final stage here, again, we'll give that a name of maybe feedback. And again, we'll add a checkpoint here, so we can add as many as we need, and we'll just put here feedback requested. Now once we've got those in place, we can come back into each of these individual stages and we can start to define the actions that we want to perform. So the first thing I'm going to do using the delete button is break the 2 nodes, the start and the end node, and I'm going to come in and start adding the nodes I want to work with. And in this example, we're just going to work through a few examples of automated tasks. So the first action we're going to perform here is actually going to assign the request that's running this process to a specific team. So we'll just give the node a name, so assign to team. This is purely for display purposes on the actual process designer. And then we're going to come in and choose the action we want to perform. So in this case it's going to be under our entity list, under our request entity and under our assignment type. Now the options we've got available to you here include assigning this to the team that supports a specific service, to a named individual, other options around round robin assignment, or to the most available analyst. But on this occasion we're just going to assign it to a specific team. So choosing the assign to team, we can then come down to the options that are relevant to that particular task type, and we can come ahead and manually put in the team that we wish to assign that to. We can also note here whether we want that up-to-date to be marked and visible on the timeline of the request that's running this process. Once we've assigned that to the team, perhaps we then want to suspend the process and wait for an owner to actually pick up that particular request. And again, we can achieve that using an automated task. So we just join the 2 nodes together, and again we can just give a name for this second action. So we'll just put wait for owner, and again then we come into the process and specify the scope. So again it'll be entity and requests on this occasion, but with this option we're actually going to use the suspend type, and from suspend type we're going to use the wait for request owner. Now this won't suspend any timers that are running, it'll effectively just pause the process and wait for a specific action to be performed. Now the options that are available here are actually to take the analyst that's looking at the request to a particular action type on the action bar that is across the center of a request, so we can draw their eye to where that action needs to be or needs to occur. So I may choose to take them to the assign node. So once we've got those 2 in place, what we might need to do is actually just remove the end node because we haven't finished this process here. So we'll just go ahead and remove that, and we'll just join up a 3rd node that takes us on to the next stage. Now once we've got that in place, we could come on to the resolution stage, but there is just one final thing that we might want to do, and that is to actually mark on these actions the checkpoints that we define for that particular stage. So the first one we might want to say is in the node after the event has taken place, we can come in here and say, right, it's now been assigned to the team. Equally, once an owner has picked that up, on the next node, we can come in here and say, right, now that will have been assigned to the owner. At this point, we're ready to go on to the next stage. So again, we'll come into the resolution stage that we've defined. We'll just break that line with a delete, and we'll come in and define the actions that we want to use here. Now, in this stage, we could come in and create human tasks to do some investigation work towards the resolution of this, or we could simply use another suspend option to wait for the resolution to be found and defined on the request. So we'll choose the latter there, and we'll go for an automated task. And again, we'll come in and we'll give that a name, so wait for resolution. And we're going to come down again and select the relevant options. So we'll go down back into requests, back into our suspend option, and finally down to our suspend wait for request resolution. Again, we can provide assistance on the actual forms by drawing the analyst's attention to the resolve option on that particular form. The next option then is to, once we've got that resolution on there, is to move on to the next and final stage. So again, we'll just come in, remove the end node, and we'll just mark the checkpoint as having that resolution being resolved. The final stage then may be, once we've actually marked this as resolved, that we may want to request feedback from the customer. So again, we're just going to break that line. We're going to leave the end node in there this time, but we're just going to come in here, and again, using another example of an automated task, we're going to send an email seeking or confirming the resolution and seeking their feedback. So let's just define that. And again, we'll come in, we'll choose the request entity, and we'll come in here and look for our email notification options, choose who we want to email. In this case, it's going to be the customer of the request, and then come down and configure the options that are available. The main ones we need to concern ourselves with are which mailbox this email is going to be sent from. So we'll just go ahead and look for our mailbox, so we'll use the service desk. And also then, and most importantly, specifying the email template that will have been configured and will be sent at this point in the business process. So we'll just put in here resolution notification, finish, and then we'll just join that up to our end node. We'll note on doing so that the validation of those nodes is complete. And the final task here is to set a stage checkpoint and mark that the feedback has been requested. Once we're happy with the 3 stages and the actions that we've defined, we can come forward and we can activate that process. Confirmation is given, and we're now in a position where we can associate that particular process to either a request type through the system settings, against a specific service and request type, or against individual catalog items.